Now, did you know that ants are farmers? I was just reading about this in Richard Feynman's book, Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman, where he describes an experience he had walking around Princeton and looking at the grass with his magnifying glass. What he saw were ants and aphids. When he saw that, he said, I jumped with excitement. My dad had told me about these. They get gently touched by the ants in a way as so as to ordain them, just as we milk a cow. And so out comes this sugary substance which feeds them and which the aphid itself cannot use. And the ants have grown symbiotic with them in a way that without them, the aphids could not survive, because the ants take them from plant to plant. After a plant dies, the ants go and take them to the other plant. And Feynman says, I had never seen them. My father had told me about them. And when he saw them, he jumped with excitement. And so they help the ants, they help the aphids go from one plant to the other, doing their security throughout that process. Moreover, they also get eaten by ladybugs if they don't have their security guards with them, which are the ants that ambush that ambush the aggressors, the attackers, called ladybugs. So I think it's just really fascinating the way these relationships develop in nature. My first question I heard this was, how did the ants learn this behavior? They're supposedly not that smart, are they? They're not that genius. Ants aren't. So how did they learn that? And apparently they have discovered that this relationship goes back 50 or 70 million years. I don't even know how they discovered that. I suppose they look for fossil remains of these animals and try to predict what they were doing when they died. And so essentially this goes back tens of millions of years. And then you may ask, well, how did they learn to do that? Even 50 million years ago, 70 million years ago? Well, I don't know. They just developed it. Slowly, it was burned into their neurological development. It was burned into the neural circuits, into their little brains, into their little ant brains, and into their little aphid brains, to develop in a more docile manner, in a more collaborative manner to one another, as they were able to grow together. So ants learn to look at animals like aphids and see them as positive and know how to ordain them, know to protect them from ladybugs and so on. And it becomes a self-reinforcing behavior. It becomes the culture of the colony as they start to use and rely on aphids more and more. They start to be more and more aware of their value, right? And so they rely on them, and then the aphids learn more and more to rely, of course, on their ant partners. And so one benefits from a relationship with the other, and in due time, they just become best friends, and it gets ingrained in their genetics. They don't have powerful, adaptable brains like human beings, so it has to be ingrained in their genetics. Their culture is not that strong either. So genetically, they were made for each other, right? They were literally soulmates. And I think it's one of those fascinating quirks of biology where real intelligence gets encoded not only in brains and minds, but in actual pieces of genes. I cannot think of anything more fascinating than that. I hope you enjoyed my overview of this fact, and I hope that you will leave a like, subscribe, so that you can help this channel grow, and that's so that we can see each other here more often. And I hope that you'll leave some feedback in the comments down below. I'll be happy to see you next time. Take it easy, please, and have a very blessed day.